Here we go. I am so super excited to welcome Emma Faye, narrator for audiobooks today. Emma, welcome to Between the Lines podcast.
So excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm jazzed because you are my first audiobook narrator. Yay! And I don't know why we don't have more on. I think it's important. I think it's critical. So everybody knows what an audiobook narrator does, but we're going to have you give a little description anyway, and give us a little idea of what it's like for you in your profession and how that all works for you.
Yeah, so it's an amazing job. I mean, basically I get paid to read. It's a dream come true. I mean, I've been an avid reader my whole life. That is a very simplified version of it. There's a lot that goes into it. It's definitely more than simply reading, but at its core, that's what it is, and it is just so unbelievably exciting. I'm an actor as well. Most narrators have an acting background. And so we are able to bring that to it to really bring the books to life. And that's what audiobooks are. It's bringing books to life through the auditory sense. And what I love about it too is it's part of a tradition that has been around since the beginning of time.
Oh yeah.
Storytelling is literally the oldest art form we have on this earth, and it's so beautiful. That is how people educated and entertained themselves since the beginning of time. They gathered around and listened to somebody tell stories. So, whether you're a bard of old or an audiobook narrator
Oh yeah.
today, it's all part of this beautiful tradition of breathing life into words, and it's so rewarding. Um, so I can talk about like the nitty-gritty of it, of like what I actually do, if we
Well, I
want to move
think
that in that
we
direction. Or
can. We'll delve into a couple different things.
okay,
Just so, from my perspective, the only time I listen to audiobooks is when we're traveling.
yeah,
And because I like to read a book, sit down and do the whole thing. But my daughter, who commutes, she's an assistant associate librarian at Tennessee State University, and her commute is back and forth, every day. She will
yeah,
devour audiobooks. And so they're critical for her to be able to have something she can listen to keep her mind off of the commute traffic or whatever's going on around her. But I have noticed the audiobooks that we listen to, it is critical that the narrator makes that book come alive. And there are some um, audiobooks, like we've listened to Andy Carpenter's series. I don't know if it's kind of a clean mystery, fun
nice.
book, from a man's point of view, by David Rosenfeld, and they're very good because the narrator is really good. I don't think the books, hate to say this, aren't like super well written, but he brings it alive. And
Yes.
in fact, they switched in a new series. He had a new series, and we were excited to start that. And it wasn't the same narrator. We're like, it's not doing it for us.
Yeah.
Critical. It is critical that people will engage with you as a reader. And how do you make that happen?
Yeah, a narrator can make or break a book. It really can. And it's also subjective. Not every voice is gonna, jive with everybody, and that's
Right.
okay, right? Like they may be a great narrator and it's just not the voice that you like, and that's fine. Similarly, as you said with that book, like sometimes we bring more to
Hmm.
the performance than really is on the page, and some of those are some of the ones I'm most proud of because I feel like I was able to bring so much more off the page, which is really fun. Um,
You enhance the story with your voice. Yeah.
yes. Yeah. And I mean that's the beauty of it. We are actors, and so we are responsible to get into the minds and the heads of every character in that book, including the narrator, the exposition and the narration of the book as well, and just really internalize it and bring it to life in an authentic way. Over the years, the industry has shifted on the expectations and what readers are looking for. For a while, it was more of an even read, and there wasn't too much differentiation between the characters, but that's shifted over the years, and people want a really engaging read. They want a conversational read that it sounds like your best friend's just telling you this story. They want to know who the characters are. They want to be able to hear the differences, but they don't want caricatures. We want to be real characters. And that's challenging, right? I'm not a male, but I
Right.
perform male all the time. And so we have to make sure that we're not making it sound silly and somebody would never sound like that. It's in the industry, in the acting industry, we have something called the willing suspension of disbelief. And it's where consumers will willingly suspend their belief of, okay, I know that's not a male in the booth,
Right.
but it sounds enough. They've got the character around. I'm good with it.
Right.
So, and that's what we do is we base our voices off the characters. What the authors tell us is what we bring off the page. And so that's right. It's really helpful to have a good, strong narrator and a good, strong author. That can just be the most beautiful relationship because the actor has everything they need on the page from that
Right.
author to just
Right.
bring it to life.
Makes a difference. If you, I would imagine with deep point of view, if you have an author that's writing deep, I love deep point of view. I love writing deep point of view. I love reading it. I
Same.
think it gives another dimension to a story, where you can actually walk in the shoes of that whatever character you have
Yeah.
on the page. So one of the things that we, as those of you listening, one of the things that Em and I talked about before we started this was that Amazon is now offering AI voice audiobook narration. I got an invitation for that. It's sitting in all my books are now up where they can say, would you like to do this? And with a click, I could do it. And I haven't pulled that plug. Because that can break a story. That can break
Yes.
a story. So I would like to know, how that is perceived by you that puts so much time and energy. What goes into you doing your craft? How much
Yeah.
time does it take you? What are you bringing to the table that we're obviously not going to get with AI? AI has taken over the world. It's very scary.
Yeah.
So I just would love to hear what you have to say about that.
Absolutely. I AI has its place, I believe. Like I believe there is a place for it in society. There are some good uses for it, and we've been experiencing some of those good uses for it for a long time, especially in like accessibility and things like that. There's a use for AI. For me personally, I want it to stay out of the arts
Hmm.
because the arts are about a soul. It's a soul connection. When a reader is reading a book, their soul is connecting with the author's soul. When I'm performing, it's my soul and the listener's soul and all of these things. So it's a soul connection to me. And you cannot get that from a computer.
No,
It does not have a soul. And so just on its surface level, that's why I'm against it in the arts, because the arts are about connection and
right,
humanity, and we need to keep our humanity more than ever now. And so I just wanted to stay out of the arts entirely. Use it as a you can use it as a tool in certain areas. I think there can be great uses, but not in the artistic use for me. Um, and some of those things that it can't do, I mean, it can't feel. So it has no idea what these words are actually saying. Maybe you could program it to sound like it's crying or whatever it is, but it's just programmed. It's not feeling it. And so it's not going to elicit the feelings in the reader either.
right,
Whether it's AI writing or AI narrating, there's no feeling behind it. And as I was saying with the character work that we do, we have real life human experiences. And so even if I haven't experienced exactly what the character in the book is experiencing, I've experienced something close. I mean, emotions
exactly.
are universal.
Right,
And so I can bring that out. And even little things, what's funny too is I don't think a lot of people realize when they rush to do AI is how much editing there is involved on the back end of it. Because, for example, AI doesn't always know the difference between the word read and read. Sometimes it can't
right,
understand
right, right.
context clues. And so there's a lot of editing that happens on the back end. So even just the work of it is tremendous. So not only does it not feel, but it's not perfect. It's not
No,
giving you what you think it is, especially if you have like a fantasy with made up terms that, no one knows how to pronounce. So and he just has it incorrect the whole time. Um, so that's my feelings, and it's a little scary. It is taking jobs. It is. There are a lot of authors who have opted to do virtual voice from Amazon, and it's really disheartening because, like I said, it's lacking that humanity and that soul. And I know it's free. I understand that that's appealing, but there are options out there, and I think that's what I would love authors to understand is there are options to keep your book, to give your book the best options possible that don't break the bank, right? Um, there's different ways to do it. There's royalty share is an option. There's
Explain what that is, royalty shares as an
Yeah,
option.
royalty share is when you find a narrator who's willing to split royalties with you on the audiobook. And so they don't make anything up front, and you both split any payment that comes after the fact. It sometimes can be challenging to find maybe the top echelon of professional narrators who do that because it's their living and they need to make that
Right.
money up front. But there are a lot of narrators who are willing to do royalty share. I myself do a handful of royalty share every year because I believe in the model. Like it makes sense. And if it's a new genre I'm interested in that I haven't gotten booked otherwise, I might do a royalty share just to have it on my portfolio. And so
See,
that's
for
an option.
me, just being honest with you, for me to have somebody like you narrating my book rather than I would give up my royalties for that. Our royalties are not, we're not getting a ton of royalties from audio. And if we are getting them, it's thanks to the audio narrator, not necessarily us. I mean, I get that.
Yeah.
But I do see that there's such a benefit and I hate to get in. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of all this, but for me as a Christian, okay, as a Christian, and I didn't ask you if you were a Christian. I don't know. I know you read clean Christian books, and you read clean books, and that's how you roll. But as a Christian, I would feel like I was not trusting my story to God in a way. I'm very leery of using AI in any way, shape, or form to create my work. It's scary.
I 100% agree. I am a Christian as well, and I do feel very strongly about that. I feel, and maybe this is getting too deep for this, but I feel that every time we let AI take over things like the arts, then the adversary wins
I
because
agree.
he doesn't
No,
want us to connect and have that human connection with each other.
and I totally agree. You're not too deep for this. If you've heard some of these podcasts, I just interviewed a young man who I'm actually his comes out on Thursday, and he's a pastor writer. And
Wonderful.
boy, we hardly talked about his book. We were so into the deep weeds of
Oh, I can't wait to
theology.
listen.
Oh, it was so good. And he was probably the most fun I've had. I mean, I love doing this. I love talking to people, but and I don't have very many sadly, there's not a
Yeah.
lot of male fiction authors out there.
Yeah.
So he was like maybe the third I've had, and boy, I was like, okay, I could have gone on and on. We just had a
I
great
love
time.
that.
So I don't, for me, it's that God is number one on this
Yeah.
podcast, in my writing, anything I do, he's number
Amen.
one. So there is no too deep for me when it comes to that kind of thing.
Okay.
So you know, but
My philosophy is our birthright is to create. He is our creator, and
absolutely.
therefore our birthright is to be a creator in his image. And art is a form of creation.
Absolutely. I was, sitting down one day and I started looking. I know there were some publishers even that were encouraging using pseudo write to write books. And I thought, I really struggle with plotting. The writing, that's not terrible, but the plotting, I kind of, I don't feel
Sure.
like I'm very creative. I thought, what if I were to use pseudo write just to plot my book, right? And I started, looking at it a little bit and I got this strong Holy Spirit head slap. And he said,
Don't
do
do it.
you believe that AI is more creative than I am? Would
Wow.
you rather create with artificial intelligence or would you rather create with the God of the universe? Your
Mm.
choice. And boy, did that, and I'm not saying that's everybody. I'm not judging other
Yeah.
people that use other ways to do that. And I have used AI like, okay, I'm going to do this for my plot. Is this plausible? And then, a little bit of that, not plotting it, but kind of throwing ideas like on a
Mhm.
whiteboard sort of thing. But boy, that was convicting for me,
Uh,
to
AI versus I am.
I absolutely. And if we're going to choose the AI, oh my word, we're
Yeah.
in trouble. We
Yeah.
really are. So I appreciate that you have that philosophy. I want to hear what it's like for you because I don't think, we talk about the cost of finished hours of a
Yeah.
book. And so say like the only book I have on audio that I was actually done by Krista Del Sorbo, who did a really good job was 9 finished hours, and it was an hour thing. Okay, you're not reading 9 hours. You're reading, you're editing, you're creating, you're going back. So tell us what that looks like for you.
Yeah. So for a professional narrator, the ratio that we work in is 3 to 5 hours per finished hour. So a 10-hour book is going to take a professional trained narrator anywhere from 30 to 50 hours to produce.
Wow.
And that's everything. That's from the beginning, when you're prepping it all the way through editing and distributing all those things. A newer narrator is going to take a little longer. Certain books are just going to take a little longer. I've done some nonfiction that have a lot of words that I have to look up and figure out how to pronounce. And I do that in my prep, but when I'm in the booth recording, I don't remember how to pronounce those
Oh,
400 words I looked up. So I have to relook them up in the moment. And then there's some authors who the writing is wonderful. It's just very different than the way my brain works. And so I'm stumbling a lot because that's just not the next word my brain wants to say. And
right.
nothing
Right.
wrong with it, just different. And so some books take a little longer than others. But on a normal book that you're kind of gelling with and it's going well, 3 to 5 hours per finished hour. And now that is, like I said, so the prep, so we receive the manuscript and we read the whole thing front to back before we
You say
ever
we,
do
you're
it.
talking about audio narrators in
Sorry, in
general.
narrator, yes, narrators in general. Yes, thank you.
Just want to
So
make sure you
narrators,
have a
yes.
team behind you reading the book with you.
No, no, it's just me. Sometimes I hire a prepper. I will fully admit that. There are times where I do hire someone to do it when my schedule is crazy. But for the most part, I am reading it front to back. And then what I'm doing is I am making lists of all the characters. I am notating anything the author tells me about them, especially any vocal qualities and their personality, physicality, how they hold themselves, because that'll change depending on the character I'm doing. And then, so anything about the characters, their relationships. Then I make note of any words that I need to look up to pronounce or talk to the author about pronouncing. If it's a fantasy, they might have a certain way to pronounce words that they've made up. And then so I have all of that. So I know the whole plot. I have all these words and these characters. And then I go to work figuring out where those characters sit in my voice and in my body and bringing those out. And often what will happen, especially when you're working with an independent author, such as yourself, we give what's called a checkpoint. And that is usually around 15 minutes of the book, a little bit of the narration, a little bit of the main characters, and anything that we want approval on. Maybe there's a strange voice, or maybe the villain doesn't come in till halfway through, and we need to make sure that that works too. So we'll do about 15 minutes, send it over to the author, and the author has that point to say, I like the pacing, I like the tone, I like the characters, or, can you try this? And we might go back and forth a little. And then at that point, that's when we get into the booth and record. Now, on a good day, the recording process for me is a 2 to 1. So it'll take 2 hours to record one finished hour. And then after that's all done, it goes off to editing and proofing. So some narrators do that themselves, others hire it out. Um, and that's the editing happens, cleans it up for like the mouth sounds and the weird pauses that happen in the booth. They send us back a list of all the mistakes that we made because we make a lot because we're human.
Wow.
Then we have to re-record those mistakes. We have to listen to the original and try to match it as much as possible. I'm sure you've all heard books where you can tell that one line sounds a little different,
Well,
and that's
because
because
it's almost like there's a different tone,
yeah.
or like if it cut off and put back in, you can kind of hear it.
Exactly. Yeah. But for everyone you do hear, there's hundreds you haven't heard. And that's a skilled
Wow.
narrator can match what they did that first time. And there's a lot of things that we do as narrators that, like, my whole lifestyle changed when I became a narrator. So I record between the hours of 1 and 4 each day. That's my prime time because that's when my voice is the best. And sometimes I'll go into the evening if I need to, but 1 to 4 is where my voice is happiest. But for example, like if I have a deadline or I can feel myself getting sick, I might have to record in the morning and do a pickup. And so I have to do everything I can to make sure my voice matches as
Wow.
close as possible, which is hard. My diet's changed. I drink so much water, more than I've ever drinking in my life.
Imagine your mouth gets dry.
Very dry, yes. Yeah, I've got all these little things in my booth to keep it
Wow.
lubricated and happy. And I don't eat dairy anymore because dairy produces a lot of phlegm.
Funny. Yep.
Yeah, so it's hard, and so like my whole lifestyle's changed. Um, and
What
then
about
at the
allergies?
end,
What if you get allergies? Oh my gosh, allergy season must
it's
be a
the worst.
killer.
It's so bad. Yes, no other job. I mean, maybe not no other job, but so little jobs are affected by a stuffy nose, but mine is.
Well,
Like you,
absolutely. At least, I mean, if it's something in like I notice we'll watch a television show, like we're binging, not binging, but going through Everybody Loves Raymond, right? I love that show. And you could tell when the actors got a cold, you know?
yeah,
They just can. But they
they
can
just
roll
keep
with it
going.
because people get colds, people get allergies, you don't talk about it, you just move on.
Exactly.
You can't do that.
Can't do that. Yep. It's
Wow.
kind of terrifying. I I take every precaution possible to not be sick. One thing that came out of COVID that I'm grateful for is that masks are normalized because I wear a mask everywhere I go because I cannot get sick because my schedule is so packed. So there's just a lot of little changes that we invest into this career. So
How many books do you normally juggle at one time? Are you juggling more than one project usually?
I'm not recording more than one at a time, generally speaking, but usually I have one in the prep phase, I have one in the recording phase, and one in the editing phase. So I'm just kind of always cycling through different books.
How long does it generally take you? Like if somebody says, "Oh, I want to hire you," how long does it generally take you? Like a month or
Yeah. So I quote 6 to 8 weeks. So that's for my process as well as the editing process. Usually it's shorter than that, but that's what I like to quote just in case.
wow.
So
So I wish I had talked to you before I had my audiobook narrator because she never gave me anything. She just did it. And I had it and she did a good job, but all the males sound like they're old women, you know, because the men
oh yeah.
and then she mispronounced one
Oh,
important town that everybody knows in Tennessee was mispronounced. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But it was too
oh,
late by the time I did that. I didn't have
yeah. Oh,
anybody asking me those questions. So that is good for people to know that if you're going to hire a narrator, make sure that you have that ability to have it checked and that they're going to do that stuff and check it out because if I was new to it, I didn't know and
sure.
I should have, you know, and I'm sure if I'd
You know,
asked, it would have happened.
and something like on that point, you as an author, so other authors, it's really helpful the more you can send. Like if you have like a character Bible, some people call it, or if you have just notes or like casting. Some authors like to cast their books, like, oh, it's, this actor is who I imagine, those types of things. If you have that type of stuff, send it to your narrator because all of that helps. Obviously, we're not going to do an impersonation of somebody, but it helps just kind of
Right.
inform who they are. And with words, sometimes I have some authors that'll send me like a voice memo of words, especially in fantasy. They're like, this is how you pronounce all these words. And it's just a quick, like 30-second voice memo where they just have recorded just those words for me. And that's so helpful. So anytime authors and narrators can collaborate like that, I think it's really helpful.
How long have you been doing this, Emma?
Going on 7 years, full time for about 4 years. I have about 170 books out.
Goodness sake. And the range is quite large, I'm sure. You're doing nonfiction, you're doing fiction. Have you
Yeah.
done Southern fiction? I just got to ask.
Um, no, nothing that's been ca classified as Southern fiction. I've certainly
Oh,
had Southern characters and I've done a lot of like Western romances and whatnot. So sometimes they're set in the
in
South.
that,
But
yeah.
yeah, it
That's
just
fun.
depends. I
Wow.
love the genre. But yeah, I do a little bit of everything. As you mentioned, I do clean reads. So my moniker, as it were, is the clean reads queen. So I will do every genre, any genre, as long as it's not explicit. So
Well, I saw your website's adorable. I love it. I
thank
felt
you.
like I was walking into Princess Land when I guess it was Queen Land, but it felt
Yeah.
like Princess Land. So when I put all the show notes together, I will absolutely include all of this information. People can come and check it out and see what you do and all your books that you have. So yeah, so 7 years you've been doing this. You don't look old enough. I'm sorry. Maybe it's me. I'm just getting old and everybody looks so young now. But
I am older than I look, but yeah.
How did you do that? I mean, you were acting. How did you transition from doing what you were doing into doing the narrating? What
Yeah.
led that?
So I've been acting my whole life. I'm from California originally, and I did the LA thing as a kid. I love acting in any sort. So I did film acting as a kid. I went to film school, loved it. I ended up moving to Utah as a young adult. Tried the acting scene out here, didn't really work. Found my way into theater. I ran a community theater out here for about 7 years. And then about 7 years ago, I've been an avid reader my whole life. I was listening to audiobooks as I was commuting to college and to work and all of that. And it dawned on me that this was acting. It took far too long for me to make the connection. But it dawned and it was probably inspiration. And I started taking some voiceover classes and told them I wanted to do audiobooks specifically. So they started training me in that direction because voiceover is very different than audiobooks for anybody out there. If you're interested in voice acting, the long form narration is so different than doing a 30-second commercial.
Oh, I could imagine.
So very different sides. And so I started taking classes with books specifically. They told me about a website called ACX. If you're an author, you might be familiar with that
Mhm.
website. Um, and so I started auditioning. I put up 3 auditions, and my third one I booked. It was a little YA fantasy, and it was amazing. And that's my favorite genre. And been going strong ever since. So I was able to move to full time 4 years ago and haven't looked back. It's such a blessing.
Well, if you guys want to hear a clip of her sound, I mean, I'm not going to put you on the spot. It's like, why don't you give us a little clip? I'm not going to do that. But she does have clips on her website. So you can go on there and take a listen and see. And they sound different. They
Thank
do
you.
sound different. You know, the YA has a peppier,
Yeah.
little bit of a higher tone to it, like a teenage girl would, and then the others is a more subdued. So very well done. And even the nonfiction, if anybody out there wants their nonfiction book done, I think that would be awesome. I've had people say, "Why don't you narrate your own books?" And I was like, first of all, I don't like my voice. And second of all, I
Yeah.
could never, ever, ever do it. I am not the actor kind of person, you know. And
Yeah.
one of my critique partners was an actor. She did all that, and she did a nonfiction book, and she did narrate her own book, and she did a fine job, but she's in that profession. And
Yeah.
I think it would be a very big mistake to try to narrate your own book if you're not in that profession.
Yeah, we have specialties for a reason, right? We're
Yeah.
blessed with certain talents for a reason, and find your people to make it the best possible. That's what I say. And if that is a talent you have, I mean, there's still a learning curve. It's not
Yes.
something that you can just hop in the booth and start doing. But yeah, I recommend doing whatever is best for your book, and that's not always yourself.
No. And I noticed if you're watching this on YouTube, because we will have this on YouTube as well, Emma's in her sound booth here where
Yes.
she's all like covered and there's black all around her and soundproof, whatever that is, that foamy stuff that goes up there so that there's no echoing sound. So, I mean, it's not just talking. You've got all kinds of equipment you have to pay for,
So much more than
editing.
just reading a book.
Yeah, I can imagine. So,
Yeah, it's a bit of an investment, but it's a fun job. But it's not as simple as people think. They think it's just, talking into your phone or your computer, but my first booth, I will admit, was a blanket fort. I was under my stairs, I had blankets, and I had some of these sound panels there. But it wasn't great. It was passable. But I invested into this, and I have my microphone, I've got all the equipment, and then I invested into the craft. I think that's the most important part, is that it's so much more than just reading aloud. You have to understand the nuances of performing as well as the different genres. I mean, certain genres require certain things, and you
right.
don't know that until you've trained in that. So,
Well, it's even like writing there. That's because there are
yeah.
so many indie authors there. I didn't start indie. I started with a publisher and then went indie last year. But there are so many authors out there that think, oh, I can just write a book and I don't need to learn anything. I mean, before I ever got anywhere, I was 10 years of learning the craft, going to workshops, delving into it, knowing what you're doing. There's a lot of work involved in learning yes, it's an art. And, yes, there are some people that are proteges and can just,
Talent. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Some of us work a lot harder at it. But I think
Yeah,
for anything, you have to put time and energy into the learning process in order to really produce anything worth any quality.
I agree. I am so inspired by the authors that I work with. I think you guys are amazing. I've
Oh,
tried my hand at writing and it's not my talent. It's something that I would like to learn and develop, but it's hard and you guys amaze me.
well,
So keep
I'm
writing.
impressed by you and I'm excited. I can't wait to share this podcast. It's going to come out on February 5th and we'll have all the information. And I will share your website with people and we'll post you all over the place. I think this is awesome. I'm so glad that you were able to come and talk to me today. Emma, I appreciate it so much and I appreciate what you do and your heart and being able to talk about the difference between what you do and what AI generated audiobooks would sound like. So thank you for that. Is confirmation. God bless
Thank you.
you. And it was
You
a joy having you here.
you have a great day.
You too. Bye.